right, so in this video, I'm going to explain to you the importance of onboarding and why it matters, and then how to fix yours. So the reason you should care about it is it builds trust. So there is nothing worse than joining, paying $5,000 for a service. You join into their Slack or whatever, and nothing happens for a day, and you're like, "What is going on? Why did I just buy this?" So it's important because trust means that your clients will stay with you longer, which is worth a ton of money. So just get your onboarding right. It'll make it a lot easier. Your team's probably wasting time if your onboarding isn't structured. It's painful from both sides. It's inconsistent, and when it's inconsistent, it's stressful. So it's worth fixing. Why you should use my flow? I've spent a lot of time on this actually. So I built custom onboarding flows for 30 plus agencies, and it's been stress tested by all of them. I'm in communication with them every day, so I hear every little tweak change. I have a lot of context, and it works for agencies of all sizes, which is also key. And the feedback's been nothing but positive, so let's just jump right into it. Just looking at this overall, it can be a little overwhelming, but I will break it down in a way that makes sense. So the way I like to do things is I start with the verbal close. So verbal close can come from anywhere, any sales channel, doesn't matter. You get a verbal close, someone agrees to work with you is effectively what that means. What you do is you fill out a kickoff form. I like to use fill out for this kickoff form, and the purpose of the kickoff form is it gives you control as to the exact moment you'd like all of the first automations to happen, basically. So the orange blocks are automated, the white blocks are manual things. So the first piece is you fill out the kickoff form, and usually what we like to do is create a draft in PandaDoc for you to review and sign. So it takes up the little small step of duplicating the template. And I personally like to always have a manual step for the sending of the contract, just because it's sensitive and usually people have to tweak it between each client. And then all we do is once the contract's been signed, you can actually catch that event using a webhook, and you can update that in your storage software. Usually we use Airtable as a backend to store as a single source of truth for this entire process. So that's the first branch off of the kickoff is the PandaDoc contract. As you can tell, it doesn't actually affect anything. Basically, this branch can happen at any time, and it just has to be completed before you start work. That's pretty much the only criteria, and that's actually how most agencies work. Doesn't really matter. You can do all sorts of other stuff before they sign the contract, before they pay. As long as most of it's automated, it doesn't really matter. In fact, it's basically a sales tool, because as they get farther and farther into the process, they are more and more committed to buying from you and signing your contract. So it doesn't really matter if you do things like create Slack channels, invite them into Slack, and do all those things. It's actually useful. You're increasing your close rate. Part of this first branch is payment. So I see payment as two options in these onboarding flows. It's either tie it into the PandaDoc subscription directly. So like you can actually do a subscription in Stripe and connect it in PandaDoc inside of your templates. So you can go that route, or the other route is you can just request payment automatically once they join Slack. There's pros and cons to either. Kind of depends on the agency which one I would pick. So the other branch of the kickoff form is the welcome email draft, which sends automatically. You can do this a couple different ways. I prefer to just say watch out for the request to join Slack. Obviously, if you're not using Slack, it'd be a little bit different. You'd probably include more in this welcome email, but for this example, we'll just say watch out for the request to join Slack. Automatically create the internal Slack channels, external Slack channels, automatically invite the key team members, so you can pick which team members you want to join this channel in the kickoff form. You can also assign pods in the kickoff form if that's your style, you like to run in pods. And then what you can also do is auto invite the client to Slack. So you can use this flow here to auto invite the client to Slack, and then you can use that as a trigger for the next part of onboarding. So at this point, you're just waiting for them to join Slack. You've probably requested them to sign the contract. So you're just waiting a couple things. Then you're waiting for them to actually join Slack. So once they do, I like to then kick off another flow right away automatically, right when they join. You can actually catch this event. So when they join, you create all the Google Drive folders. So I have an example structure here of the client. You probably have brands underneath, brand assets. So you probably want a client-facing folder. The client-facing folder is useful because you can actually request in a message like this to say, hey, please drop all your relevant assets for the projects we're going to be working on. You can also use this flow to create one-time internal docs, like strategy docs, brand briefs, that type of thing, just based off of like a template. You can ping to let your team know that they've joined, tell your team to go welcome them. And then you can also do an auto welcome message. So you can use a Slack block kit, and you can have a welcome message, something like this, where it's like you can have multiple instructions, like complete the onboarding form with a nice button, book an onboarding call, fill out this do not contact list, so on and so forth. You can basically customize these fully. You can add videos in here. It's like a fully customizable web page. Basically, you can do whatever you want. So that's super cool and very customizable. Bookmark stuff in Slack. So usually what I'll do in this part of the flow is bookmark like that Google Drive folder or other relevant links, like for example, a company brain or something of that nature. You can use this welcome message to request payment. So you can actually have a link here that just says like set up your subscription with us. And then that would show up in this little message, which comes through in Slack. So it's like right when they join, this is automatically coming through and requesting all of these things without you doing anything. And then the next thing, you can wait for them to submit the onboarding form. So this would be the example of the message here where you're saying complete the onboarding form. So there's a couple ways you can go here. Once they've submitted the onboarding form, you can request the onboarding form and booking a call at the same time, or you can actually do onboarding form. Then once that's completed, request the onboarding call. We usually do it this way. It's kind of depends on the agency as well. And then once the onboarding call has been completed, you're just going to be waiting on payment. So these two branches originally, so you have like the contract branch and basically the payment branch. Then you start work. So you need both of those things before you start work. And like I said, it's kind of the foot in the door technique. It doesn't really matter if you've received payment because you can also use this onboarding call to get them to pay. It's a sales tool. And one other notable mention is that you can have automations when people pay you. Typically, people are using Slack, so you can ping in a Slack channel to keep track of payments. You can also update the payment status in Airtable. You can store all of this data, so like the Slack channel IDs, Google Drive IDs, all of that stuff in Airtable, so you have a backend and a single source of truth, which is extremely important. And this should smooth out your onboarding flow. So it'll work like this every single time. You can do cool add-ons like sending T-shirts or a pair of shoes or whatever. I've seen that done. You can actually do that automatically with a few different websites. And then that's it. You pretty much start work. Your clients are going to be much more confident in you because you've just put them through this. It's very smooth, and there's not a lot that'll change per client. It should be very structured every time. Saves everyone time from both sides.